March 24th, we talked about anxiety with Brent Lyons. Here that part
Yeah.
is.
And we are in today. I think this notion of the absurd might lead us into our discussion of anxiety. And my friend Brent, who I'm still angry at, and I'm going to spotlight Brent so you can all see him. I'm
Oh,
angry
great.
at Brent because he used to live right down the street from me. And he had this horrible idea that he was going to go to England and get a PhD and abandon me. And so he did. And so I'm a little disgruntled towards him. But Brent, I'm going to ask you some questions. I'm going to kind of do this interviewee style. I think would be
Cool.
the best. So folks who are there, I'm going to mute all of you with the exception of Brent, just for the time being. You can always unmute yourselves when you have something to say. But I want to be able to have a little bit of a dialogue with Brent so that we can, ooh, I just muted Brent, which was not what I was trying to do. Okay, so Brent, tell us the topic of your dissertation and how you got into it.
Well, the topic of my dissertation is on anxiety, but I have a different view of anxiety. I've dealt with anxiety actually since the earliest of my memories, and it's something that I've struggled with for most of my life. But it wasn't really until I came across this Danish philosopher, Soren Kierkegaard, that it all kind of started to make a lot more sense.
Now,
And
can you give us define anxiety? I mean, you're using the word, but we just were using the word Bartle, Poosballs, Eno, and Tuni. So what do we mean by anxiety? You've always had anxiety. I've always had hair. Like I can define hair. Can you define anxiety for us?
well, it's something that feels like a cousin to fear, if you will. The interesting thing these days is that I think that we all kind of know what we're talking about when we're talking about anxiety, because I think this is the first time in my life that kind of the entire earth is feeling some measure of anxiety. But the way that I would define it, in general terms at least, is that fear and anxiety are kind of close cousins, but fear has an actual object. So to me, fear is the perception of something that actually exists that you see as a threat to your life.
Fear of snakes, fear of guns, fear of the boogeyman, fear of incompetence, fear of cars, fear of this. But anxiety is just fear.
Yeah, and so I would say that anxiety is more like the perception of possibility.
Okay, now that's where you made a big jump. Help us with that. That's where. So, folks, let me give you, because I've talked with Brent about this before, and where he's going is going to be kind of like, if I said
Alice in Wonderland.
yeah, it's almost as though I said to everybody, "Hey, you know how we've always talked about." Oh wait, hold on a sec. You know how we've always. Your host spotlighted my video for, I don't know what just happened on my screen. Okay. You know how we always say that the wind causes the leaves to move? What Brent's about to talk about is going to be as though he says the leaves are moving and that causes the wind. So brace yourselves. This is going to get deep and weird. So go ahead, Brent. You just said that anxiety is about possibilities.
Possibility, yeah. So another way that you might think about it is fear has to do with something that actually exists in the present moment, whereas anxiety is directed toward the future. So the future hasn't happened yet. We have all these possibilities in front of us. I mean, I think the world that we live in there are easy ways to point this out. I mean, just the fact that we have so many different options. I mean, this is a mundane version of anxiety, but the fact that we have so many choices about something, I mean, that itself can arouse anxiety.
So the past is comfortable because the past is set. There's not much we can do about it, but the future is all possibility. There are so many different options, and it's the fact that there are so many options that causes the anxiety?
Yeah. So the way that Kierkegaard put it is, when you're presented with all these new options, you're presented with a bunch of possibilities or opportunities. It's kind of like you're standing at the edge of a cliff, like, on the edge of this precipice, looking down, yeah, at all these new possibilities that are there before you. You look down at these possibilities, and what he said is you feel this sort of spiritual vertigo, and that vertigo is anxiety, what he called the dizziness of freedom.
Okay, wait. So we all have all of these possibilities in front of us. We feel really all of this fear.
Well, that's the thing. So I think that, like I say, I think fear is more the perception of something that we see as a threat to our.
I'm standing on the edge of a precipice looking down and there's nothing there and you're asking me to take a step forward. I'm going to have fear, no?
If you know what the object is, a lot of times I think that we don't know when anxiety is aroused. I think that we're not looking at it correctly. I think a lot of times we're confusing fear with anxiety. I think that anxiety is more of still a threat, but more of a threat to my current way of life. Not so much my physical existence, but the way that my life is currently oriented.
Okay. And you go even further with Kierkegaard on this. So take us further.
So Kierkegaard was a spiritual guy, and he thought, what if God is offering me a new life?
Okay, now time out, folks. You all know me well enough to know the God word. We don't mean, I know Brent well enough to know he's not talking about a specific but we're just using the God word as a placeholder here. So please don't let that freak you. Brent, can you say that again now that we had the little asterisk disclaimer about the God?
You could even say, suppose new life is being offered to you.
Suppose new life is being offered to me.
Yeah.
So I think of it this way. People come to me for spiritual direction, and spiritual direction always involves some uncomfortable growth. And I've wondered, and I've asked people, is there any way to transform without it hurting, without it being uncomfortable? And the answer seems to be no.
I agree. Yeah. So this gets into, this is a perfect kind of segue into the kind of I think there's a sort of threefold process that happens with anxiety. One is you've got your current life orientation. So you're headed in a particular direction with your life. There's the sort of furniture of your life, the people that are in your life, your job, the direction that you see your life going, et cetera, et cetera. And it might be that in your life, your possibilities sort of dwindle. So in other words, you're kind of stuck in a rut. You're sort of going through the same motions every day. Well, a new life being a bunch of new possibilities which are not currently in your life. So for example, you find out that you're going to have a baby, or you're moving to a new city. And these are just a bunch of new possibilities. And that will throw you into step 2, which is disorientation.
Right, that makes sense. So I was stuck, I'm stuck. And then all of a sudden I was doing the same thing pretty much every day, regular school day. In February was all normal. And now all of a sudden I got new possibilities. And what was part 2?
Disorientation.
Right, so I don't know which way is up anymore.
Right, yeah, exactly. So one, you've got this sort of current orientation. 2, you've got a disorientation, which is the introduction of new possibilities, new opportunities. And that is uncomfortable. It kind of has to be, because it's kind of the only way, I think, for whatever reason, the way that the human being is constituted, we like our orientation. We don't like disorientation, but what happens in disorientation?
Wait, Brent, we did this quote yesterday or 2 days ago. Anyone remember this one? Remember that one? It's in Latin. It says, doubt is uncomfortable. Certainty is ridiculous.
Yep. That's beautiful.
It's a Voltaire, but I put it in Latin so that it sounded,
It looks cooler.
gravitas. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so disorientation is uncomfy. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also, disorientation is also this part where you allow yourself to be remolded. When you're in a current orientation, you don't want to be remolded. You don't want to change your character really.
So you have to allow yourself to be remolded.
Yeah, I mean, this is just what happens. And when you're in this period of disorientation, of heightened anxiety, you will accept help from whoever will give it to you. You're in a much more receptive place than you typically are without anxiety.
Right, because I need to get out of this discomfort. I'll take any pill, any elixir, even a false god, put it before me, I'll take it.
Yeah.
And how about 3?
And so then 3 finally is, and again, this is very generally speaking, but 3 is your new life. This is where you become reoriented. So you've not only discovered what your new possibilities are, and I look at this whole process of anxiety. I think that what anxiety ought to be making us do is to ask ourselves, what are these new possibilities that are before me? And I think a better way to look at it, again, taking the climate that we're in right now. A lot of people are going to say, I feel so much anxiety because of what might happen to my health, what might happen to other people. And obviously that's perfectly.
It's understandable. That's reasonable.
Yeah, exactly. But I think, again, that's more of a fear or a worry. I mean, there is
right. What is it's a fear of an uncertain future.
Yeah, and so I think that these kinds of worries are more along the lines of fear. But
so am I supposed to just go, all right, world, I'm open to all this new possibility because I'm too uncomfortable in the uncertainty, so I need to just surrender?
That's part of it. So I think the better response is to say, okay, so these worries that I have, these fears that I have, okay, that's fear because fear has an actual object. I think a better response is, okay, but wait, I'm still feeling anxiety. So what might that anxiety be about? And again, Kierkegaard's idea is that anxiety is the perception of possibility. It's the perception of a new life being offered to you. And if it has a sort of divine source, then it's going to be necessarily positive changes that you could make in your life. And I mean, for me, not to be a sort of silver lining kind of guy, because I don't think that's kind of who I am, but there are really amazing things happening in the world right now through all of this. I mean, I've never even heard of a time in history when the entire earth, all nations sort of come together in cooperation. Right. I almost wonder when all this is over, are countries going to say, oh, wait a minute, we've been cooperating with you. You're my enemy. I shouldn't be doing that. Yeah. Families are getting together like they never have before. Communities are becoming extraordinarily altruistic. And so to me, all I see are these amazing, beautiful blossomings of new possibilities that I've just never even read about these things.
Yeah, go ahead.
And so I think that, okay, so for me in my life, when I've felt anxiety, what's been behind it are incredibly positive transformations in my life.
That's a little, I mean, I get that. That's fine. That happened to you and that happened to you in the past, and I'm glad for you. But I'm a little like, that's a hard pill to swallow. Yeah. Well, so what I kind of lay out is a conceptual framework, but at the end of the day, it's something to test in your own life. So, and I've worked with it
a lot
So,
myself.
you're advocating, let me say, let's try this as an experiment, right? Let's try
Yeah.
it as an experiment. And what would you say? All right, folks, here's the experiment. What would you have us try? Because let's face it, we're all in anxiety. We'd look to anyone to help us. Brent Lyons, Dr. Brent Lyons, give us what do you think? What is the experiment we should try for the next 24 hours?
So I would say that if you're feeling a measure of anxiety, imagine that there might be some sort of new life that's being offered to you. So first of all, it's a great question to ask. Why do we have anxiety? Apparently, the majority of the world has it. It must serve some sort of purpose. So what I think...
Well, fear is to protect us from things, right? There's a
Yeah.
natural purpose to fear. I'm afraid of walking quickly on ice because I'm going to hurt myself. And so
Yeah.
you're saying there's got to be some purpose to anxiety, because otherwise, why would we as a species have evolved this craziness? And you're saying
Yeah.
that it's a harbinger of future possibilities. It's
a
like
couple of things. Yeah. And so, I mean, the one thing that all emotions do is motivate you to act. So take...
Yeah.
Yes,
There's an action. I'm afraid of the ice. I'm going to walk slowly on it. I'm afraid of the
Sure.
lion. I'm going to live very far away from the lion. I got it.
Yeah. And so there must be a motivational factor to anxiety. What I think that its motivational force is twofold. First, again, here's this conceptual framework that a sort of new life exists in front of you. A sort of, and it's not just one life, it's a sort of range of possibilities. And so the anxiety will remain there in us until we do one of two things. One, we begin to search out, okay, what are the positive changes that I could make in my life and the life of others? And so that this is sort of phase one, which is kind of a knowledge acquisition phase, gaining knowledge of what this anxiety, what possibilities this anxiety might be pointing toward. And then step two, and so what I will suggest is that as you examine these potential changes you can make in your life, when you hit on one, you have actually grasped on to something real. I mean, something that is a real possibility.
Can you give an example, maybe? I'm a little lost on that.
Well, one example I can give is from 2015, back when I was your neighbor, and I began feeling tons of anxiety. For me, this was kind of out of nowhere, but at this point I knew that there was a purpose for it. And so this is exactly what I did. I came upon this program at the University of Oxford, which I had no business applying to. The entry requirements, my grades were so far below that I actually...
And you weren't studying anything near. I know you should not have gotten in.
No, and my dissertation supervisor has now completely agreed to this when I've told him his story. But when I found it, and I started thinking, what would this entail? I mean, I'd be uprooting my family and everything, and which should give me, that should give me a lot of anxiety. What it did, though, was it dissipated the anxiety until I entered this sort of restful state.
Wow.
Which is beautiful. But it still remained until I finally put into action. I put everything into action. I reoriented my direction in life. Okay, I'm going to apply for this. We're going to uproot our family. They accept 4 people a year to this program, and my grades were horrible. But lo and behold, it motivated me until I finally applied. The anxiety vanished, and I got right in, no questions asked.
So step one, seek out what the possibilities that might be there and look at them going, there's some new possibilities before me that I never would have seen if it weren't for this crisis.
Exactly.
And then 2, leap towards one. Can I use that leap? Can we transition to that leap of faith thing that you talk about? Kierkegaard is known for saying leap of faith. And I remember you said, no, Brian, he never actually said that. So help us out.
Right. Yeah, well, but it's something similar. The idea is to take that knowledge and not just sit there with it. Because if you do, the anxiety is going to remain. So the anxiety remains with you, pushing you to appropriate what you've learned, actually putting it into action, putting it into your life. And what you find at the end is that through this whole process, you become completely transformed. Your character changes for the better. The people around you change for the better. You introduce all kinds of new goods into the world. And none of these things would have happened if it weren't for the anxiety motivating you the whole time.
Who here, by a show of hands, who would like whatever it is that Brent is drinking? Okay, so I get it, and the idea is that I think I remember you talking about Kierkegaard saying that once you make that decision, that second part to do it, that the anxiety burns up.
Yeah. What he says is it burns up everything finite and petty inside of you.
Okay, wait, I want to say that again because I think that's brilliant. Is once you make that decision to leap towards the unknown, to leap towards these new possibilities, it burns up everything that's petty and finite within you.
Yeah.
That's quite a trade. I mean, if you want to know what Brent's drinking, he's drinking the desire to just go with whatever it is that's in front and let that burn up everything petty. Wow, that's just great. Keep going, brother.
And you feel joy?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's beyond joy. It's a peace, and like I say, it's this ironic rest where you feel like you're at rest, but you're in pure action at the same time.
I think that goes to what we were saying yesterday, the Václav Havel quote about that inner sense of hope, that there's that sense of no matter what. And Ruth Bernstein, you sent me a beautiful quote yesterday. Are you still on the line, Ruth? There you are. Ruth, can you tell everyone the quote that you sent me?
Oh, sure. Sure. I wrote it down. I figured you'd ask.
But it was on this same line. Go ahead. I'm just going to vamp for a second.
In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer, and that makes me happy. For it says that no matter how hard the world pushes against me, within me there's something stronger, something better, pushing right back.
Thank you, Ruth. Brent, what do you say to this idea that this is all, once you make that internal shift, you get that eternal sunshine inside?
Yeah, it's just a matter of, like I say, it's just a matter of embracing that.
Okay, so you gave an analogy to me once about letting yourself go into surgery.
Yeah, I would read you the quote from Kierkegaard because it is beautiful. But essentially what he says is...
You go.
Yeah, essentially what he says is, anxiety is, it's not a pleasant process in the same way that surgery is not a pleasant process. And I mean, it doesn't feel pleasant in the same way that pain doesn't feel pleasant. But I mean, without pain, the human species wouldn't be here, you know?
And I think the part that hit me most about that quote was there's a point at which you're laying on that hospital gurney about to go into surgery and you truly surrender yourself. And you say, I'm going to let this into the surgeon's hands and I'll come out on the other side. Yeah,
so I'll read you the quote here from Kierkegaard.
Okay, and then we'll take some questions. Folks, we've not had such a didactic discussion. Usually we have much more interactive. I thank you all for holding back. Go ahead, Brent.
When anxiety announces itself, when it cunningly pretends to have invented a new instrument of torture, far more terrible than anything before, he's talking about the person that has rightly understood anxiety. He does not shrink back, and still less does he attempt to hold it off with noise and confusion, but he bids it welcome. He greets it festively, and like Socrates, who raised the poisoned cup, he shuts himself up with it and says, as a patient would say to the surgeon when the painful operation is about to begin, now I'm ready. Then anxiety enters his soul and it searches out everything. It anxiously torments everything finite and petty out of him, and then it leads him where he should go.
Amen. I love that. Brent, thank you. And let's take some questions or comments or where we go from here. That was a lot.
Yeah,
So,
it was.
thank you, Brent, for jumping in.
Yeah, thanks.
We don't always get this like a treat. Does anyone have a question? Something they want to? Ruth, go ahead, my friend.
I don't see the difference between fear, the process of working through fear, and the process of working through anxiety.
That you're saying, isn't it the same medicine that we take for
Yes.
fear and the same medicine we take for anxiety?
I mean, and I'm having trouble differentiating.
Right. It doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. It's going to be the same treatment. So what's it matter?
Right.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think the difference, and I think Rabbi Brian, I think you're right, that the medicine is going to be the same, but I think that where they differ is that, okay, so for example, if I come across, I'm hiking in the forest and I come across a bear, I'm going to be afraid of the bear that's standing right in front of me, because there is the bear in the present moment. And I perceive that bear to be a threat to my physical existence. The bear could kill me, right? Whereas anxiety, I'm not even sure that in this particular moment you would necessarily feel anxiety. Maybe you would.
But I wouldn't take the same steps of learning about my new possibilities in front of the bear.
Right.
I'm just going to run and probably shit my pants.
Anxiety is a much more reflective, introspective process where you're learning about yourself. You're learning about the way that you can positively change not just yourself, but the world. And so it has to do with possibility. It has to do with especially with the idea of possibilities that are being offered to you, I think. So one big difference is that nothing has been actualized in anxiety. You have all these possibilities that they're just awaiting. They're kind of, if you will, they're just awaiting in front of you for you to reach out and grab them and pull them into your life and do something good with them.
Thank you. Rona, did you have a comment?
No, a question actually. I just wanted to know who this person is that Brent keeps referring
Kierkegaard.
to. I hear kindergarten.
It's not kindergarten. It's Soren Kierkegaard, and Soren's got that cool slash through the letter O.
How do you spell the last name?
Would somebody put the names, put a little wiki link into the chat window? There it is.
His name is already there, and then there's a question here that says, when we express our anxiety to family members who then say that's not helping, how should we respond? Are we not allowed to have our feelings about the current situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Okay, so I mean, in one sense, our emotions are generally, at least a lot of our emotions are passive. They just happen. They just happen whether you like it or not. One thing that I would say, and so, I mean, there's a couple of things. One, so, I'm overcome with some feeling of empathy or sadness or anger. Each of these things have a reason. When I'm feeling angry, I'm perceiving that some sort of moral injustice has occurred. Maybe I'm wrong. But another thing to keep in mind is that, ideally speaking, our emotions are tied to our beliefs.
Oh, that's a whole nother Oprah.
Yes, it is. And so here's a great example. This might be one way that I would respond.
And Brent, I'm going to ask you to, and this is an impossible thing because I know you. I'm going to ask you to wrap up your thoughts with this one because then we're going to take
no worries. I'll do this one
final
quick.
thoughts from people.
So if I'm deathly afraid of spiders, every time I'm around a spider, I see a spider, I think it's going to kill me. I also don't really know anything about spiders. Okay, so when I express, I see the spider and I freak out about the spider. One of the things that I'm sort of offering is, ideally, okay, inform me, help me understand why I shouldn't be feeling this thing. In other words, you can actually have emotions that I would call unjustified. And this would be one example. If there's a perfectly harmless spider and there's somebody that's with me that knows everything there is to know about spiders, that person can tell me, look, he picks up the spider, shows me that it doesn't have any venom, it can't hurt you at all. My belief is going to change about that spider. And what should happen is, because our emotions are tied to our beliefs, as my belief changes, my emotion should change as well. And so with my family members, and I grew up in Texas where emotions are a big no-no, especially for a male. So I have these kinds of discussions all the time. It's kind of like, okay, it's not helping when I'm talking about my emotion. Okay, well, what's happening here is that what I'm asking you for is, I've got this emotion that maybe I shouldn't be having it. And so inform me why I shouldn't be having this emotion. What beliefs should I change? It might be a good way forward.
That's a much more intellectual conversation with a family member than I think my household is doing. But I love it. Let me thank you, Brent, for sharing with us on anxiety. And I always ask people at the end of our meetings, and I'm going to ask you especially, those of you who have been on these before, if you shoot me an email, tell me how you like the format and what we did today. Give me some feedback later so that I know. I might not respond to everyone because that's a lot of emails, but please email me. I would love to hear back. But what'd you learn in today's, we had almost an hour together. I'd love to hear 3 different things that were learned, things that were taken with us from today's discussion, and not about gruntoing lipples. Although that could be something you learned from that too. What are 3 things? Yes, Kim.
I got a better perspective on anxiety, seeing it not as a thing to be feared in itself, but that anxiety is actually an experience of fearing the unknown.
I love that, right? We have a fear of anxiety, and that one is just what Brent was saying about the spiders. Brent is our expert on anxiety, and he's saying this thing is not actually a venomous one. This is just anxiety. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah. So when I'm experiencing that, it's because there's so much unknown out there that I don't know what's coming.
Right.
So when I'm trying to take positive actions over those things that I can control, it's my effort at dealing with what I don't know that's out there.
And in reframing it as possibilities.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Brian, could you real quick move your head so people can see everything on your whiteboard?
Okay, I will.
There we go. There we go. People wanted to see that.
Okay. Fantastic. And are there other comments, other things that we learned that we want to talk about? Yes,
So
Barb, Emily.
Running away from the anxiety and fear, it maybe stay with it and embrace it.
Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
That's a crazy idea. I'm going to take a screenshot of this. And then Barb Segura, I know you had something you wanted to share.
Here are my notes. Enjoy.
Yes, I feel much calmer after this discussion, recognizing that my anxiety is rooted in some past either experiences or beliefs. Brent didn't say past experiences, but I don't think, but I feel so calm after this. I'm in a Zen place.
Good. I just put a PDF of my notes up into the chat box for anyone who wants those. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. That's the point of this whole thing. Like, yay.
Amen.
Amen. Okay,
Amen.
folks, tomorrow I lost the focus on me. There we go. I'm focused again. Tomorrow we are going to discuss stuff.
I don't see it in the chat box.
There should be a PDF in this chat box. I'll throw it up on this resource page, which
it's there in the chat box.
At the very bottom.
I'm getting confirmation that it is there, so that's good. Linda Shivers, go ahead. You got a moment. Tell us.
Did he say that our emotions influence our beliefs or beliefs influence emotions? Which is which?
I think emotions influence beliefs.
They can, yeah, they can do both.
It's a two-way street.
It is a two-way street. Emotions are a fascinating area for that, actually.
And that's actually, this is inspiring me. There was a lesson I used to teach to my high school students, which I learned, and it's the 5 basic emotions, their natural causes and their distortions. And maybe tomorrow we'll look at that. That will be back to our normal interactive kind of style. Okay, folks. Thank you so much for spending this hour. Please invite your friends. Please send me an email. And here's the time where I unmute everybody. Uh-oh. Wait, hold on. Here's the time. Wait, not yet. Don't do it yet.
Hey, Brian, I did this as a watch party again, just so you know. I didn't think it was necessary to invite you, but I...
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, bring your friends. Why not? I'm going to unmute everyone, and this gives you an opportunity to say goodbye to everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Brent.
Bye, Brian.
Thank you, Brent.
Wonderful. See you tomorrow.
Meditation helps people gain clarity and calm, but the instructions on how to meditate are often constricting, confusing, boring, well, they suck. I'm Rabbi Brian Zachary Mayer, and this is Meditation is Magic. Join as I teach Stallion and Dragon a bit about mindfulness and the 4-letter secret to meditation. Have you ever thought, I wish meditation were as simple as magic? Now it is. Meditation is magic.
Meditation is Magic is parental advisory, explicit content. Teens make certain to advise your parents. I want to learn meditation with Meditation is Magic. It's explicit, fancy word for clear. Also, the horse dropped the F-bomb.